history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howes.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Monday night, we're November. How are we already at November 24th, guys? How is that possible? November 24th, 2025. Amazing. The time is going very fast, is it not? Well, we got a big program tonight. We're going to have on Pastor Tom Hughes. He's a Middle East expert, a Bible prophecy expert. We're going to talk about a lot, I'm sure. I don't really know how long we'll talk. It's our first time to for me to interview him. I've never met him before. I've never talked with him before. So we're just going to go for it. You know, sometimes we do pre-interviews, chit chat, get to know each other. Not tonight, because he comes highly recommended by Dr. Andy Woods and Patrick Wood, among others. But I think you're going to appreciate Pastor Tom Hughes, who I understand from following him on social media has just returned from Israel. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight. I also would love to ask him about this. This has just come out. Launching the Genesis mission. That's today, a new executive order. It's kind of an AI Manhattan Project by Donald Trump. Boy, this guy, President Trump, is going pedal to the metal on AI. Everything's AI. I'm telling you, they're going to end up running the whole government with AI, which I think, frankly, is setting the foundation for the mark of the beast system. Social credit score system will be tied into the other systems of the other countries, but it is moving fast, is it not? You got Peter Thiel and his buddy J.D. Vance, and you got Curtis Yarvin and Larry Ellison, and it goes on and on. Whoa, it is really moving fast. I'm going to ask Pastor Tom about that tonight. See what he thinks about that. We're also going to have on David Pyne to talk about the latest multi-point, 28-point peace plan that they are going to try to force onto Zelensky. Is he going to take it? It looks like the terms are not very good for Zelensky, but when you lose a war, the terms generally aren't very good, and he is losing. Or will the war go on? Because we have here it is. Top French general warns public, prepare to lose your children in war with Russia. Yeah. We'll talk about that. We're going to get into talking with Annie tonight about Iran, the latest out of Iran. Iran security chief sees no path left but direct clash with Israel. We also have the number 2 man and Hezbollah, the Iranian terrorist group. Hezbollah, Israel has taken out number 2 of Hezbollah. Let's talk about that. And I know Annie has some thoughts on Mamdani going into the Oval Office and the very friendly, backslapping, he'll do great, he'll do wonderful in New York comments by Donald Trump about Mamdani. Shocked a lot of people. I'll show you a clip tonight of, what's his name? Jack Posobiec in the Oval Office when Trump was talking. Didn't go down with Jack. Too bad Jack tied so much of his fortunes, apparently, around the Trump administration. Never a good idea to do. That's why our network was not going to go down that road. We're reporters. We stay independent. We don't tie our brand around any one politician because, as history has shown, they come and go. We're still here. You know how many people tied their brand around George W.? Yep. Let's see. We got Pyne, we got Hughes, we got Annie. Oh, Maness. Let's ask Colonel Rob Maness. He hasn't been on a while. Let's ask Colonel Rob Maness about the members of the House and the Senate that are making statements telling the troops don't obey orders from President Trump if they're illegal orders, but they gave no examples. So what are they talking about? Because now we find out that the Department of War might be looking to court-martial a U.S. senator from Arizona. Yeah, we'll talk about that with Maness, along with Venezuela. Are we about to see a U.S. strike on Venezuela? A lot of activity in the region. I don't know. I have no idea on the timeline. Let's ask Colonel Rob Maness about all of that. Okay, so that's the broadcast for tonight. Why don't you text, tweet, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, whatever you want to do. Let folks know that we're on the air. Don't forget, coming up December 4 and 5, that's a Thursday and Friday, we're going to do our International Online Worldview Weekend. We'll be preempting most all of the shows and do 4 and 5, Thursday and Friday, International Online Worldview Weekend. We're going to have about 30 guests about 30 guests coming on, doing little presentations, taking Q&A from you, the public. It's going to be amazing. We'll take your calls as we do a international online worldview weekend. So mark your calendar for that. What else? Don't forget about us in your end of the year giving, please. Very important. We have a big end of the year so we can set our budgets to keep pushing out more free programming for 2026, okay? Worldviewfoundation.com. And then, of course, would you consider doing some of your Christmas shopping over at WorldviewTube? Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You can get the water filters. Those are great. By the way, if you got one of the water filters, we really started selling a ton of those about a year ago right now. It's time to replace the filters, not the actual system. You keep the system, replace the filters. We got the refill of the filters there at worldviewwater.net. The Worldview Talk, it's your satellite phone for your family members. They make great gifts. The minutes roll over and they just keep adding up so you can use them when you really need to. You won't lose them month to month. The satellite phone is free. You sign up for one of their very reasonable plans. They have solar generators. They have the bulletproof backpacks, the beanies and blankets that knock down the EMF. Switch for Life, talking to some family members about that this weekend. This is extremely important. The glutathione to detox your cells. Some studies show may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. The glutathione in that is very important. Then you got the Gatatana, which I take every day. 1 scoop, equivalent of 90 billion plant cells, feeds your cells down to the mitochondria to boost your immune system and fight off all the bad stuff with your own healthy immune system. I take this every day. Of course, you know I do Bella Grace each and every day. Look at that great hair growth. The hands are beautiful. They're not cracked. They're not bleeding as they did for years and years. The 3 things I do every day: Bella Grace, Gatatana, and Numi. You know it. It's all there. Make sure you have your Worldview Health Care, have your antibiotics, your medical kits. God forbid we go to World War III or cyber attacks or terrorist attacks. And the grid goes down, you can't get to antibiotics. You want to be stocked up. Some of these things you might actually try to barter with. If we have a dollar collapse, as seems to be being predicted by the Economist magazine for 2026, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what they got on their cover. Then you might want to have a means of bartering. You can always barter with antibiotics. Speaking of bartering, why not go on over to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. We got freeze-dried food, has a 25-year shelf life. I got about 3 years worth. I got a lot so that I can actually barter with it as well. Medical kits, medical supplies, so much there. Some of these, by the way, make great Christmas gifts as well. My new book on Hamas is there. You can buy, download. If you're a Vault member, it's already in there. Don't buy it. My new book is out on my documentary, Sabotage, right, guys? Siege. I always confuse those. Siege is in there as a new book as well. You don't need to buy it. It's in there if you're a member of the Vault. Sabotage is coming soon. And then my Revelation series. That's going to be a little bit, folks. I've been editing on that. That's 1,000 pages. That's going to be 1,000 pages as it is now. I may have to edit that thing down. Here I am. I've been going through. This is just the first 12 chapters. This here is just the first 12 chapters. I spent all weekend, sometime today, just going through these first 12 chapters, marking them up, adding stuff, taking stuff out, moving stuff around. I mean, I'm working on it. It's going to take a while for me to go through and read all of these pages based on my 53 hours of a 1.5-year study on the book of Revelation. But it will be there eventually in the vault for members. You won't have to buy it, but we will make it available for you to purchase if you so desire. But otherwise, why not join the vault and just have access to everything? Go to town, folks. 35 years, radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, conference DVDs, and more. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Boy, you are missing out on so much if you're not a member. And we have very soon coming as a part of it, without raising the price, a brand new online worldview and Bible software program we've been working on for over a year. Going to blow your mind. We hope to have that launched by December 4th when we do our online International Worldview Weekend. All of that is part of your membership automatically as it launches. So go ahead and join now. Worldviewtube.com/vault for as little as $7.99. Let's go to the Dolly Cam. Is the Dolly Cam working tonight? Let's go to the Dolly Cam real quick. Dolly, are you doing all right tonight? Oh, he's going to have to turn the old Dolly Cam. Look at that. Woo! Too much, going back, backing up, me. There it is. Oh, it'd be nice if it would focus. Look at that. There's Dolly. Dolly's a little tired. She had a big weekend. Cayman came to town, my granddaughter. But not only did Cayman come to town, so did Melissa's sister and her identical twin girls who are, late 20s, who have a ton of kids. So the house this weekend was filled with a lot of kids, a lot of crying little babies. Nap time, you got to be quiet. And then, of course, they're awake and they're crying. And some of them love you. Others are hitting at you. Some of them love you. Some of them are scared of you. So she's a little overstimulated. And now she's tired. They're all going, I think, home tomorrow morning. And it'll be real quiet. Except Cayman will still be here. I think maybe we'll bring Cayman on set tomorrow night, of which you're very jealous of, but you're sweet to her. So anyway, she had a very busy weekend. We had a very busy weekend. But despite all those family members being in town, I still had my church service last night, part 2 on why I'm a Christian Zionist, part 2. If you missed it, it's in the vault. Or actually on the website, worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. Are you a good girl? You are a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Look at those beautiful teeth. I love to show off those white, pearly teeth from the Gatatana. It helps all that phytoplankton helps to eat off all that bacteria and keep your teeth white, doesn't it? Yep. You're going to live to be 100. Let's hope. All right. Don't forget, worldviewstore.com. You do a lot of Christmas shopping there, won't you? Worldviewstore.com. Let's get started. Joining me now is Pastor Tom Hughes. He's a first-time guest here. Hopefully he'll come back. We'll see if he's happy after we get done talking to him. I hope he will be. He is a good friend with Patrick Wood, as well as Dr. Andy Woods, and I would venture to guess we have several other mutual friends, but we meet for the first time tonight. He's the founder of the 412 Churches, as well as a regular conference speaker. And I think he takes regular trips to Israel. I just saw where he was there in Israel on his social media account, which we'll tell you about here in just a moment. He joins us now. Pastor Tom Hughes, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, man, this is fantastic. First time ever. Man, I'm excited.
Glad
Great
to have
meet
here.
you.
You too.
I'm really glad to be here.
We have a lot of mutual friends, don't we?
We do. We have an awful lot of mutual friends. I see them on your program. I watch, and now, man, I get to be on here. I can, pinch myself.
Well, we're glad you're here. Now, did you just get back from Israel?
I did. Yes. In fact, this is the very first program, mine or being on anybody, since I've been back from Israel.
Well, good. I'm sure you got a little jet lag, so thank you for being with us. Man, there's so much that we can talk about. I want to get right away, though. Tell our audience a little bit about who you are before I get into my questions.
So I've been a pastor for about 30 years, and I started at Calvary Chapels. I know, what's her name? Candace Owens. She's going after all the Calvary Chapel pastors now. So I guess I'm in good company.
I gotta say, that must mean you're the good guys if she's going after you.
That's the way I figured. Everything she's going after, I'm thinking, oh, this is crazy. So then I was on staff as a pastor on Greg Laurie's staff for a number of years. And then I became a lead pastor for about 22 years ago, and started 412 Churches, as you mentioned. And but I've been doing Bible prophecy for, I'd say, a good 30 years now.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to have you with us as well. Your reputation precedes you, and it's all good from what I hear, and from our viewers as well as our broadcast partners. Well, let's talk about many things in that Bible prophecy realm where we are in this church age. I'm doing a series. I just finished up a year and a half teaching through the book of Revelation verse by verse, then went right into the next week. Why I'm a Christian Zionist, part 1. Last night, Sunday night, was Why I'm a Christian Zionist, part 2, and spent most of the evening in Romans chapter 11. Now, the fact that you've been doing this so long, are you shocked or not at the rise of anti-Semitism, not only within the so-called America First MAGA world, but within the evangelical church and the fast rise of replacement theology for the new people, the belief that God is done with the nation of Israel. He's replaced Israel with the church. All the blessings given to Israel are to be given to the church now, which, of course, they never want any of the curses, only the blessings. Are you shocked at that, particularly with the rise of neo-Calvinism, hyper-Calvinism, John Calvin, Augustine? Are you shocked at how this has spilled into denominations that are not traditionally Calvinistic? So question really in the nutshell with that background, the speed of anti-Semitism in the modern church and in politics and even the MAGA America First movement. Any of this shock you?
So I would say it's the speed of it and the fact that we are still here witnessing it.
Yes.
Is what's a shock. And it's also greatly discouraging to watch what's happening in the church. Now, you and I both know we were expecting something like this to happen because we know what the Bible says, but to see it happening at the level that it's happening is troubling. And I guess I could use the word shocking. I was speaking at a conference, I think it was about a year ago in Arizona. And I didn't remember saying it, but after I was done, I had two different people come up to me and said, well, you said half the people that are in this group right now will probably no longer support Israel within a year. And I said that. They said, yes, you did. And I look back now and I thought, well, that was obviously from the Lord, because we are watching, even within prophecy circles. And I think, Brandon, one of the troubling things is people a year or two ago say, well, I stand with Israel, and suddenly they can't quote anything other than Genesis chapter 12. I bless those who bless thee, I'll curse those who curse thee. They have no other scriptural reference or understanding or basis for what the Bible actually says regarding Israel and God's relationship with Israel. And much to the chagrin of those who are in replacement theology, they'll say, well, that's just Old Testament. No, it's New Testament also. And you already mentioned Romans chapter 11. So we see it not just in Romans chapter 11, but you see this. It's God's plan of redemption. It doesn't just include Israel. Israel is is foundational to be able to understand God's plan of redemption and Jesus coming back. Israel has to be here. And so we follow it through. As you know, when it comes to Bible prophecy and replacement theology specifically, what's happened is people are so basically, well, Bible prophecy ended when Jesus came the first time, ascended to heaven, sent his Holy Spirit. Well, then, so do you stop studying all future prophecies regarding the nation of Israel and the Jewish people and the second coming of Christ? Because it isn't just for the Jews, it's also for us. But we are tied together in this if we are willing to look at the Bible.
Absolutely. And we got into Romans 11 last night. We'll have to pick it up after Thanksgiving. But today on radio, I had our reporter on the ground in Israel, a Messianic Jew, Aaron Lavarco, was with me. And I titled the broadcast, and part two will have to be on Tuesday, a Gentile and a Jew look at Romans 11. A Gentile and a Jew looking at Romans 11. Because we see that olive tree, which is that place of privilege, as Charles Ryrie and so many have described it in their study of that text. And then, but the root is the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob blessing of the Jews, which gave us the Messiah, the Word of God. We're all blessed by that, Jew and Gentile. Genesis 12, as you said, already speaks to that, I believe. But there was a passing over because they rejected Christ. And so we went to the Gentiles, and we were blessed by that with the starting of the church. But as you said, we have to have the Jews in the land, Ezekiel 37, politically revived. And then we're waiting for spiritual revival. And they must do that in order to cry out, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And boom, the second coming. And we have those Jews that were martyred, the Jews that made it through physically, persevered through the tribulation, and they received the millennial kingdom, the promises of Genesis 15. They'll fulfill the Mosaic covenant, not to be confused with the Abrahamic covenant, which we see so many people like John Piper want to quote Romans chapter 11, verse 28. They are enemies. And he stops. And I showed the screenshot where he stops quoting the verse, mid-verse, verse 28, Romans 11. Why doesn't he finish the rest of 28, 29, 30? Why doesn't he do that? Because it says what? These are irrevocable promises, and I will show mercy to them, just as I showed mercy to you, the Gentiles. I mean, Pastor, is it these guys don't know the Bible? Or are they that deceptive? Or is it their anti-Semitism, rather recognized or not? Is it a presupposition they come to the text with? and they're going to defend it at all costs, even if it means chopping out the scriptures?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, I don't know, and even when it comes, I mean, these guys are like a guy like Piper, he knows what the Bible says.
Of course he does.
So with that, certain individuals have made a conscious decision to ignore that. To ignore, God says this is irrevocable. It cannot be revoked. The gifts and callings of God they can't be revoked. And God is specifically talking about Israel in that passage in Romans chapter 11. So it obviously, to someone like Piper, it's very troubling to them because it confronts what their theology is. By the way, this also, it's the same group that has to attack the rapture of the church, because these two are tied together, because obviously just the whole subject that we are dealing with when it comes to the dispensations. And if you have a rapture, then you also have this time that is coming in the future that is specific for the Jews. Listen, God is very clear in the Bible that this does have to do with the redemption of Israel, and he's going to bring Israel through their pain and suffering. They're going to go through great trials. They're going to go through the fiery furnace, is how the Bible describes it. Of course, obviously in the book of Daniel, for example. But again, you still have this in the New Testament too. The Apostle Paul, if replacement theology had any validity, then when the Apostle Paul went from synagogue to synagogue to preach and teach the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, he would have gone to the synagogues and said, it's all over for you. Because if anybody would have known about replacement theology, it would have been the Apostle Paul, who was a Jewish believer. So I look at this and think these arguments are absurd. And I'm sure you've had the same challenge I've had. I've asked people to come on my program and said, let's just talk this. We don't have to argue. We don't even have to debate. But let's talk through this. And I said, this is what I'll do. I will bring the Bible into our conversations, what I'll do. And we'll talk about Israel and God's future plan for Israel. When I was in Israel just recently, last week, I was meeting with a friend of mine. He's Jewish, not a believer in Jesus. And we had an interesting question in the lobby of the hotel. So there are several other people that were sitting around listening, which I wasn't really paying any attention to them. But he had a question about replacement theology. And he said, I'm not real familiar with it, but I've been hearing more and more people that are just done with us Jews, that God has replaced us and it's coming from the church. And he said, can you explain it to me? And I said, I sure can. And I said, basically what you have to do in the New Testament is wherever you see the word Israel, you just take a pencil, you cross out Israel, and you put church in there. And as you already mentioned earlier in the program, what they'll do is they'll take the blessings to Israel, but they don't want the cursings, and that also comes from the Mosaic covenant. People get that confused. But as I'm talking with them, I said, here's the thing. I said, you and I are, in a sense, closer to understanding the prophecies regarding the coming Messiah. I said, here's the deal. As you know, I believe the Messiah is coming again. I believe Jesus is the Messiah. He's coming again. I said, you look at the prophetic prophecies and you say he didn't fulfill those things, therefore he's not the Messiah. But when you still look at the prophecies regarding the coming Messiah, the son of David, he's going to be a conqueror. The government will be on his shoulders, Isaiah chapter 9. You look at those things as still being future. I said, I also look at those things as still being future when Jesus comes second time. Replacement theology has to say, it's done. And those things aren't still future because they have to do with the nation of Israel and the second coming of Christ. So you have to do some type of gymnastics. You have to make passages either allegorical or symbolic in order to make them fit. You have to take the entire book of Revelation and say it doesn't apply right now. I was reading an article in the New York Times several years ago, and it was an editorial by someone that you and I would both recognize, a theologian. And he said, well, wherever you see Paul talking about, he brought specifically 1 Thessalonians. And he says, whenever you see Paul talking about something that sounds like the second coming of Christ, you got to know it's always poetic. It's poetry at that point. So you can't actually take those as literal. And I thought, well, this is what you have to do. You have to say we can't take these passages literal, because if you do, you have a problem with the rapture, You have a problem with the second coming of Christ. You have a problem with the nation of Israel. You have a problem with the Jews.
And you have a problem with the millennial kingdom for a lot of them.
You have a huge problem with the millennial kingdom. And you also, I know this is going to be really offensive to a lot of people, but you make God to be a liar when you say God's done with the nation of Israel.
You and I have not rehearsed this, but I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that is what we've been repeating over and over. These people are maligning the character and nature of God. They are blaspheming God. They are making him out to be a liar. And they think that's going to come with no consequence. I mean, when we get to the very end of the book of Revelation, there is a curse. There are plagues on those who add to or take away from this book. I mean, that's bad enough, but then you start blaspheming God, right? I mean, this doesn't go unpunished.
Absolutely. You know, going back to, I know you just taught on Romans chapter 11, but I can't help but think, I think it's in verse 25 where Paul writes, I don't want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brethren, unless you be puffed up in your own mind. And Paul is addressing the fact that people go down this stage of replacement theology. They become arrogant and they look at Brannon House and Tom Hughes as being, well, you guys, you just don't understand. You're not of the enlightened one. Paul says you'll be puffed up in your own mind when you think God's done with the nation of Israel. And that's exactly what we see. You're talked down to, you're put down in seminaries. But the fact is, you ignore, how much of the Bible do you have to ignore when you eliminate the nation of Israel? Yeah, pretty much have to eliminate the whole Old Testament. And then you look at the New Testament and go, wait a minute, these are Jewish authors apart from Luke. Hey, that's another problem. And it's interesting. There's 170 different references in the Bible to the people of Israel, Jacob, the tribes of Jacob. Who's that about? That's the Jews being back in the land in the last days, that God has given them the land. 170 different references, whether they have the land, it came from God, or they'll be back in the land in the last days, as Isaiah says, a second time. And what's interesting about that, Brandon, when Isaiah writes that they'll be drawn back into the land a second time, they weren't even kicked out the first time yet. So Isaiah is writing, he's warning about Assyria, because Assyria was certainly the time Isaiah wrote, but also about the coming Babylonians who were going to come against Judah. But they hadn't even been kicked out the first time yet, and Isaiah is saying, but this is what's going to happen. A second time it's going to happen, but you will come back a second time. Amos says you'll never be uprooted again. God says, my name is on the covenant, and although you sinned against me wherever you went, I will draw you back into the land, because my name is on the covenant and is in the covenant. In fact, he even put Abram to sleep in Genesis chapter 15, because God knew that no man could keep up his side of that covenant. So God did it. God's name is on the covenant. And God said, even though you sinned against me, I'm bringing you back, because, listen, it's about me. Mm. And here's the strange thing with it, Brandon. What we see is, we see in God's plan for Israel, we see grace and mercy. And suddenly, many in the church say, well, that grace and mercy doesn't apply to Israel, it only applies to us. What? This is God's plan, and he picked a people to bring his plan through. Not just the land, he gave them the land. I stood just recently on the mountaintop. In fact, we were in Jordan also, Mount Nebo, where Abraham is looking out. And then when we were over by Gerizim and looking with Abraham, where he would have been looking out there too, in the area of Gerizim and above Shechem, and seeing that. God says, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to bring you back into the land. But he gave them the land. He made them a nation. He gave them the city of Jerusalem, which he called Zion, 152 times in the King James Bible, no matter what the anti-Zionists say. He gave us the Jewish Messiah. He is the Jewish Messiah. And you're looking going, and this has nothing to do with Israel going forward? If there's no Jewish Messiah, because they're trying to de-Judaize the Bible, de-Judaize Jesus. They try to say he's a Palestinian. You crazy? The word Palestine wasn't even invented yet. Nevertheless, it's it's really a spiritual attempt to eliminate the hope that we have in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Mm. You said so many wonderful things there. The story of redeeming you, redeeming me, redeeming those in this listening audience tonight that have been redeemed all comes to really the story of the whole Bible, the glory of God, right? His glory, redeeming the Jews. It reveals his glory, his mercy, his grace, redemption, but it all points to his glory, right? And yet we have people that seem to be attacking, as you say, rightly, the word of God, his character, his nature, his promises, covenants. And yet some of them, they make their whole ministry about, we're here to glorify God. And it's always glorify God, even to the point of where we want to be involved in Christian hedonism and whatever that means, John Piper. You're the guy always talking about the glory of God. And yet now here is a great opportunity to reveal in your teaching the glory of God through the program of the church and Israel as eternally memorialized in the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven and sitting on earth. And you want to rip the scriptures out of context as you do? And I can't help but notice, Pastor Hughes, that it seems to be the common theme with many of them is their neo-Calvinism, their hyper-Calvinism. And no, now we have a works-based gospel that merges sanctification and justification. John Piper, you must pursue holiness and slay sin for final salvation. I mean, where is that in the Bible? It's not by works, lest any man should boast. They confuse justification, sanctification, and they end up with this works, this perseverance. They've now defined everything through the tulip of Calvin, who writes his Institutes 24 months after getting saved and says you could rewrite his whole doctrine from Augustine or Augustine. Really? The Catholic's Catholic. And we wonder, as they follow Calvin and you read Calvin, you think you're reading Hitler when he talks about the Jews. You read some of the stuff by Luther, you think you're reading Hitler, but of course, Luther ends up being quoted 3 times by Hitler in Mein Kampf. You're reading Augustine with the same thing. And I'm like, well, no wonder. These guys seem to start with a presupposition every time. What did Calvin say about it? And, you know, Luther, I think, even mocked the idea of the book of Revelation as being the writings of a madman. And you see this continual stream from this group of people to the point I have to say to my audience, unashamedly, I say, I believe that when we get to glory, we're going to see that one of the biggest demonic influences in the modern church in America and around the world has been this neo-Calvinism, this hyper-Calvinism that is now spread like a cancer to many Protestant churches that were not even reformed in their history. And I'm not talking about the Reformed theology of Charles Ryrie or any of these, you know, Schaeffer or any of these guys. I'm talking the neo-Calvinists. But you got it spilling into Baptist churches and Baptist denominations that didn't do this. But now they go and they drink from the well of Together for the Gospel. They drink from the well of the Gospel Coalition. They drink from the well of those guys that are part of that, like Piper and others. And they drag this poison back to the sheep. And I think this is largely in part why we are here today. Because they have started with thus saith John Calvin and a few of their other favorites, and then everything is put through that grid or eliminated from the scriptures based on that. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, it's all put through that grid. And this is why I try to get people on. Let's just talk about what the Bible actually does say. Don't stop partway through Romans chapter 11, verse 28. Let's read the whole thing. Let's read it all in context. And by the way, speaking of the glory of God, going back to the nation of Israel, God tells Israel in the book of Deuteronomy, I chose you, not because you were great, not because you were marvelous, not because of all those things. I chose you because you were the least of all nations. Because I was going to be glorified in what is least. Same way that God is glorified in the worst of sinners that are saved. And somehow, all of these grace, the grace and mercy, it only applies to those who aren't Jewish, aren't of Israel. It only applies to the Gentile world. That makes no sense when you look at the nature of God. How can you glorify God when you eliminate the very thing that God stands for and the very thing that He founded? And we think of Also, you just finished the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 19, verse 10. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So if you eliminate that, and to eliminate prophecy, you have to eliminate the nation of Israel. You absolutely have to. That's probably why these guys, all of them that you're quoting, why they hate prophecy so much, because it puts Israel into the right biblical perspective. Nevertheless, if you want more, these guys, as you know, Brandon, they all say, well, we just want to teach Jesus. We want to have more of Jesus. Well, if the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, that means you have to cut out. How much of Jesus are you cutting out when you don't teach Bible prophecy, when you don't teach about the nation of Israel? Everything that we have spiritually came through the nation of Israel and the people of Israel and the Abrahamic covenant and the Mosaic covenant. All of these things did, which leads us up to Jesus himself.
100%.
So, I mean, so what are you eliminating if you're saying, I want more of Jesus, but cut out the prophecy and cut out the Israel stuff? That presents a huge problem, because the prophetic word begins in the book of Genesis and doesn't conclude until we get to the end of the book of Revelation. So if you're cutting out prophecy in Israel, what's that say about Revelation chapter 19, verse 10? Well, I guess they say if it's writings of a madman or it's just allegorical, I guess that's how you have to get, I guess you just have to deal with it that way.
Well, they're creating straw men to prop up their false theology. You mentioned Genesis and Revelation. And I often remind our audience, particularly on radio, that Genesis and Revelation are two of the most rejected books of the Bible in many regards by modern day evangelicalism. We don't want to start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning God created. No, that's not sophisticated enough. That's not scientific enough, they say. So we'll go with Tim Keller and biologos and the idea of Adam and Eve were, allegorical creatures. They're not real. So we'll do that. And you see that, of course, being funded by the Templeton Foundation, John Templeton, who wanted to create a world religion that didn't rely on any sacred writings. So he funds it and helps get biologos kicked off. So these guys are now running around. They don't want to teach Genesis. Interesting enough, as you mentioned, we see the nation of Israel mentioned all through there, particularly as we get into Genesis 12, 13, all the way down. Then you go over to Revelation. Well, they don't want to touch that either, because now they got to pick an eschatology, and they don't want to upset people and divide people and nickels and noses. So two of the books, one beginning, one the end, these end books of history, they don't want to touch those two books. I find that very ironic. Do you not?
I find it so obvious that it is a spiritual battle. We think of the glory of God. The entire book is for the glory of God. So if you eliminate Genesis and Revelation and anything else in it you don't like, I mean, Thomas Jefferson did that.
Yes, he did.
Create a Bible in his image. That's what they are doing. As you mentioned, they run it through the grid of their preconceived theology. And hence, so you have to eliminate, you create the Bible you want. Another book, as you know, that's attacked often as not being authentic is the book of Daniel. Well, why is that? Well, maybe because Jesus said something about the book of Daniel in all of his discourse when he's talking about the abomination of desolation as a fact that it's going to happen, as a fact that Israel will be back in the land, as a fact that salvation would come to Israel. And what's really happening, Isaiah chapter 14, the enemy of our soul says, I will ascend, I will be like the Most High God. I will raise myself above the heavens. Wait a minute. Of course, God says, I'm going to bring you down to the lowest parts of the pit. But what is really happening? And also, I couldn't help but think of just a couple of verses that popped in my mind. One of them is in Psalm 14, where David writes, oh, that salvation of Israel would come out of Zion. When the Lord brings back the captivity of his people, let Jacob rejoice and Israel be glad. Well, that's kind of a problem. Right there you have Zion, Jacob, salvation, Israel brought back, Israel rejoice in salvation in their Messiah, the Messiah, Jesus. Another one, Brandon, I don't know how much time we have.
We're good. We're doing good.
Okay. Once you start me, I start talking. I'll tell you.
That's why we love. That's the kind of guest we love. Make my job easy.
In Psalm 2, We know the psalm well. Why do the nations plot rage and the people plot a vain thing or conspiracy? The kings of the earth set themselves together against the Lord, against his anointed. Let us break their bonds in pieces, cast away their cords from us. That is ultimately this book. They're saying, cast it away from us. And this is interesting. God says, I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, I will give to you the nations for your inheritance. That is speaking of Zion. The nations are saying, we are done with Israel. Let's cut off this book and everything that represents regarding the Messiah, again, the Jewish Messiah. You go back to the days of Hitler. The Nazis attempted to de-Judaize the New Testament because it was a problem for them. And we see the same thing happening today. De-Judaize the New Testament, de-Judaize Jesus. Jesus was, well, of course, the absurdity, he was a Palestinian, what a lie that is. Mary and Joseph, now they're trying to say, oh, they were Palestinians too. It's de-Judaized because the enemy of our souls wants to set himself above God. The only way he can do that is to eliminate the Jews so that Jesus can't come back and the Jews can't cry out, Zechariah chapter 12, that they would look upon him whom they pierced, that they would say, as Jesus says in Matthew 23, when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, that day will come when you will say it. But until that day comes, I'm going away. The day will come when you will say it, and I will come back. It was Hosea chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. I am going to return again when you acknowledge your offense and you call upon me, and then I will come back. Satan doesn't want that to happen. It's infiltrated the church, and the problem is Christians are not taught the Bible. They're only taught certain things about the Bible.
They're not taught the Bible. And I don't know your age, but I'll tell you, I think you and I were kind of raised in the same generation. And
I'll tell you, so I graduated from high school in 77.
Okay, I graduated in 88, or 11 years apart.
So I'm old enough to remember what you're going to bring up.
Yeah. So you and I were basically raised in the same generation at a time. And when we were in the 70s and 80s, did we ever think with all of the Bible churches, right? You could pretty much walk into any self-described evangelical church, Bible church. You'd hear the clear gospel. You would hear a lot about Bible prophecy in some of these churches, particularly in the 70s, thanks to the late great Planet Earth and Hal Lindsey and others. You would hear some worldview coming from Francis Schaeffer. There was so much going on, right, in the 70s and 80s. And you had Christian radio exploding in growth, Christian television, publishing houses, colleges, Christian colleges and universities, 70s and 80s, Christian literature, Bible prophecy books, so much going on that you and I grew up in, and seeing that launched in those 2 decades of the 70s and 80s, right? Now, obviously, continued some into the 90s, no doubt about it. But you and I were raised at a time when we would look around, right? And we would see Christian bookstores that we would walk into. And we would turn on Christian radio. And we would see the Christian newspapers and the Moody Monthly and all of these magazines and publications. Did you ever think then that one day this massive, large audience of largely dispensational Christians, whether they knew they were or not, would shrink down so small to the point there will only be a handful of us that are teaching and proclaiming from the Word of God this same message, that what we are seeing, that we are overloaded with such great information and speakers and content and conferences, and they were doing documentaries like the late great Planet Earth and others, and it will all be shrunk down to a small audience of Bible teachers, prophecy teachers, worldview guys, and we will be viciously attacked, not only by so-called Christians and so-called the church, but we'll be attacked even by those in the political movement who will have picked up on this, John Rich and others, saying that what we believe was invented by John Darby I mean, the dumbest thing in the world. We've shown on our broadcast how we can go back to the early church fathers, first century, and show you where they were teaching these things. Did you ever think this massive movement and force and engine of the Protestant evangelical church that was spreading through the world to teach this would be shrunk down? And now there's not many of us left. There really is none. And, I say to my wife, the only good thing I can say is, well, we don't have a lot of competition, because where are you going to go to get this kind of teaching and news and information through the lens of a biblical worldview and Bible prophecy? You, me, Dr. Woods, Dr. Rob Lindstead, the others I can mention. There's not a lot of us, is there? Can you believe this huge movement has come down to this small group of people teaching this?
So I'll answer this as quick as I can. So I would say yes and no. No, I didn't, in the one sense that I was watching everything. Now, I got saved in '88, right? And Hal Lindsey's book and documentary, Lake Great Planet Earth, were very effective. It was Bible prophecy that really got me to start thinking about the Bible. But I was surrounded by my Protestant friends, a church, and all of these different things. It was a different era. For anybody alive in the 70s and 80s, it was a different era. So I didn't really expect it, even into the 90s, listening to Christian radio all the time, watching good Christian programming. I didn't really expect it, except here, Brandon. I was really starting to study Bible prophecy a lot when you roll around to 1990, an awful lot at that time. And with that, there's certain telltale signs in the Bible, like 1 Timothy chapter 4, in the last days there will be doctrines of demons, deceiving spirits, teaching lies and hypocrisy. 2 Timothy chapter 4, last days perilous times will come. What? Evil men will wax worse, evil men and imposters. That talks about church leaders. Evil men and imposters will wax worse and worse, but you make sure that you stay strong in the faith which you got your start. And then a very interesting thing, I know you know all these scriptures, but maybe for your viewers, they might be enlightening to them. As Paul continues in 2 Timothy chapter 4, he says, hey, the people will not endure sound doctrine. In other words, it literally means they will no longer put up with the truth, speaking of the truth of the Bible. They will not put up with the truth anymore. Instead, they will bring for themselves teachers that itch their ears and bring in fables and feel-good stories is what it means. And that's what's happened. And then, of course, when it comes to the Bible prophecy world, man, Brandon, are we seeing it shrink with teachers? Because I look and think, how many teachers of Bible prophecy were actually faithful to teach the word? And this is what I think part of the problem has been. You have to be faithful in the word, or you're going to get all sidetracked by all kinds of crazy things out there. And next thing you know what you're going to do, you're going to start blaming Israel. You're going to start going down the path of all these other people, which leads us to 2 Peter chapter 3. In the last days, scoffers will come, walking according to their own lusts, saying, where's the promise of his coming? Our fathers used to talk about that. In other words, we used to believe that stuff. We used to hear it at church in the 70s, in the 80s, sometimes in the 90s. We know all about Tim LaHaye. Yeah, we used to hear about this stuff, but very interesting, Brandon. He says they're walking according to their own lusts, and then they start scoffing and mocking us. And these are people who once would have walked with us. Mm-hmm. They become the mockers.
Which really brings us to that false dominant church, I think, which is where we're heading quickly, of Revelation, which I think is Revelation 17:1, that woman, that harlot, I should say, the harlot that sits on many waters. I think that's a false dominant church. And then there's a scene change. John's carried away into the wilderness, and he sees now a woman riding a scarlet beast. And I think you got to have that false dominant church that helps to lay the foundation, as all politicians love to use religion and religious institutions. And the Antichrist will use it before he turns halfway through the book of Revelation 17, and he and his 10 world assistants devour and eat it of her flesh. I think that's a false dominant church. He's been set up. I think he's devouring it. He's used it. He doesn't need it anymore. Now he sets up himself to be worshiped. And I think what we're seeing is this false dominant church. It just has happened quicker than I anticipated, and with denominations and people I never expected. Now, let me switch gears because we could go all night. Donald Trump today released an executive order. and I know most of our audience probably is hearing this for the first time. Take a look, folks, at the screen. Released tonight, this afternoon, launching the Genesis mission. And what he's going to do, folks, he's going to use AI, and he's going to take a bunch of scientists, and they're going to use AI to develop even more technology. The Genesis mission will bring together our nation's research and development resources, combining the efforts of brilliant American scientists, including those at the national laboratories, with pioneering American businesses, world-renowned universities, and existing research infrastructure, data repositories, production plants, and national security sites to achieve dramatic acceleration in AI development and utilization. I believe that what Donald Trump is doing, whether he knows it or not, with guys like Peter Thiel, who are running around with Curtis Yarvin, and all these, Larry Ellison, I believe these guys are building the Antichrist beast system. I don't think it is the beast system yet, but I think they're laying the foundation for a China-style social credit score system. No one will be able to buy or sell. Reported on our newscast tonight that now we have the Department of Homeland Security and Border Patrol. They're taking license pictures. They're taking pictures of our license plates as we travel. And if we're involved in any travel that they seem and find to be suspicious as to where we're going and coming from, they then will call local authorities that they're working with, pull you over, and then work to search your car. I'm all for cracking down on crime. But what I see coming are basically 15-minute UN World Economic Forum cities, and eventually you can see how quick they're going to be able to track down anyone who becomes a believer in the tribulation. And man, the harvest of people becoming believers is so many, the Bible says you can hardly number it, but they're being slaughtered almost as quick. And you're wondering, how is it they can do this? And you can start telling pretty quick with people's patterns online, what they're reading, the sites they're going to, maybe the sites they're no longer going to. Their algorithm has changed. They've gone from reading a lot of demonic stuff, occultic stuff, New Age stuff, whatever it is they're involved in. And all of a sudden, they're running over here and they're looking for stuff by Pastor Tom Hughes and Andy Woods and Brandon House. We're gone, but they're looking for our stuff and they're reading and listening. And pretty quick, the algorithm can say, this person's changed all their habits consistent with someone who's just started following Christ. Go get them. I mean, it's amazing what's being done.
It is. So with that, I mean, you said a lot there. But with that, this is where another part of the deception has been. By the way, you're the first person I've ever heard mention Curtis Yarvin. For all of your viewers, I would say you got to do research on that guy. He is behind the scenes pulling strings that he's very good friends with Peter Thiel, but that's another story. But he's worth looking into. That's another subject in and of itself. Okay, with that, I look and go, people think on the right, let's talk Christian right, Bible-believing Christian right, not the other right, right? We know the woke right, not the woke right. They think that all of a sudden prophecy has stopped because Trump's president.
Yep.
I would say the opposite. We are going full speed ahead. What's happened is if we look back to Joe Biden or Barack Obama, all of us were shouting from the rooftops, hey, look out, watch out, this is what they're doing. So some of us are still shouting from the rooftops, hey, watch out, look what they're doing. And people are saying, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it anymore. Look, we got our president in, everything's going fine. Look at what you just pointed out from today alone, just with this executive order. You start looking at this going, where's all of this going? We are watching what's going on in the UK. Friends, don't think that isn't coming here to America. And all of the groundwork, I 100% agree, Brandon. This is the groundwork of the beast system that is coming. The system that is being built is a system that nobody can escape from. It was years ago. It was 2018. I was speaking at a prophecy conference in Santa Barbara, and this speaks to everything that you're saying, Brandon. And I said, here's what's going to happen. It's coming during the tribulation period, where you're going to be going down the road, and in your car, if you're not raptured, and you're still here, you're going down the road in your car, and all of a sudden, your car doors are going to lock. Your car is going to pull you over. until the authorities get there to arrest you, and you will not be able to get out of your car. This guy approached me afterwards. He said, that's never going to happen. They don't even have technology like that. I said, this is 2018, and this is, friends, this is what is coming. I mean, to think that, I talk with people and think, well, I'm not in a database. I don't have a smartphone. Nobody knows where I am. I said, I'm telling you, listen, the moment you were born, the doctor slapped your behind, you started crying, and everything about you was entered into a book, into a database, maybe handwritten back then, maybe typed. It went into a database that is now in a computerized database somewhere. Every dentist visit you ever had, every school you went to or school you didn't go to. Even during the days of COVID, not only was it documented the people who complied, it also was documented the people who didn't comply. Every single thing we have is being collected on us with the intention to use against us, and that day is approaching. I don't worry about it, and we don't worry about it because we know our citizenship is in heaven, but we don't worry, but we do warn. So that's what we do.
We don't worry, but we do warn. And of course, for those of us with children, with grandchildren, the best thing we can do is evangelize them so they go with us, and then we won't have to worry about them.
Amen. Amen. I like that.
In closing here, let's talk about the Antichrist. The left has failed. And now, sadly, I think President Trump is failing. I mean, he's making nice with Mamdani in the Oval Office. He's going to let Qatar have a base in Idaho. He's making excuses for 600,000 Chi-Coms to continue into our country to keep propped up Marxist schools. He wants H-1B visas to continue because I guess we're not smart enough, but we turn out now that they're mostly entry-level jobs. I mean, he's stumbling and failing. Has he done a few things I'm happy with? Absolutely. But overall, this is not turning out well, and he hasn't even been here a year. And I think what's going to happen, if I were to guess, unless he changes direction, there's going to be such a dissatisfaction with people on the left, dissatisfaction with people on the right, that it sets the stage for algorithms more and more. It's like, why do we need these politicians? They're on the take. They're using their jobs to enrich themselves. They go in hardly worth anything. They come out multimillionaires. The judges are political. The judges are hacks to the right, to the left. Just turn more and more over to algorithms, and let's get out of the way and let them do it in a, quote, non-biased way, they're told, right? And that seems to be what Doge is setting up, and all these other groups are setting up, is to make people so unsatisfied with the way things are today that people will cry out for another system, one that happens to be being built by Peter Thiel, so we can either go with the Antichrist system or Armageddon, but maybe there's a third option, right? But I also wonder if not only do we see more and more turned over to an algorithm system, but that people also get sick of the right and the left altogether. And they're sick of Congress. They're sick of parliaments. And on the stage walks a guy performing counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders, who can say, all of these politicians have failed you guys on the left, in the middle, on the right, be they Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Fabian Socialist, the Keynesian economics guys, the Labor Party, they've all failed you. But I can bring you, using technology, I can bring it all together for everyone so we have real peace in the world, promising peace. But you know what? Politicians always say that. They always promise. And you guys are sick of the promising, aren't you? So I'll tell you what. I want to validate my ability to actually deliver on my promise and promises. So let me show you something. And he performs counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders. You and I know Jesus didn't do these miracles because he was doing magic shows. He was validating the authority from which he could speak as the Son of God. And here comes the Antichrist performing counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders in order to validate who he says he is, what he says he can do. So you don't have to take my word for future promises. Have any of your politicians ever been able to do this? No. They can't do the supernatural. I can do the supernatural. Now, if I can do this in the supernatural world, what do you think I can do in your natural world if you give me the chance? And I think the world is being set up with a disgust for the left, the middle, and the right. And they're being so intrigued with UFOs and our Pentagon releasing paperwork and videos of UFOs. I don't know if this guy shows up on a craft and walks out as some more highly evolved, intelligent species from another planet, as we've all decades of Darwinian evolution, or where he comes from, how he arises. I know my friend Ron Carlson concluded his book with Ed Decker, Fast Facts on False Teaching, saying he would be shocked if a UFO showed up, unidentified flying object, and outwalked this benevolent entity. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're being conditioned for. Maybe it's someone that's on the world scene now. We just see in the corners of camera shots. What are your thoughts on this?
I think all of the above. So I am fed up with the right and the left.
Yes.
I mean, but I do think that's part of the plan. You know, if let's use that as a starting point. Then I want to get into UFOs and a few other things too. So when we look at, people are upset over just about everything right now. We have the insane transgender stuff. Anybody that just has any mental stability at all can look at that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You know it's just wrong. Biology is biology. You know, we're told trust the science, and then suddenly the people don't want to trust the science because science says there's boy and girl. I mean, plants are male and female. When you call your vet and they say, is your dog a male or female, or one of the other 100 possibilities? The vet doesn't say that. There are no other possibilities. So people are fed up. They're fed up with being lied to. People know they're being lied to. And I do think that's what's going to happen. Person's going to come along, and it could very well be the technology, the algorithms that bring about the system. We know that Antichrist has to seem omniscient, all-knowing, and obviously the way to do that, we can see it now with technology. All-knowing and also omnipotent, all-powerful. Technology that is here right now. It's, by the way, it's been here for a long time. Check this out, Brandon. So I interviewed my dad several years ago, because in the 1960s, he worked for a company called Teledyne. And they were one of the foundational companies which later became the Silicon Valley. And it was 1963. My dad told me the story when he was there. The reason my dad worked for them is because he went to college and he was a metallurgist, chemistry. And so he was helping to develop the computer chip, the transistor, and then the chip. And that's why he was brought on, because he had that knowledge, and he got to know all of these tech people that were prior to Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, prior to those guys. And he said he was invited, I have it all on video, and he was invited to a party above the Hollywood Hills. And he said one of the guys came along, he says Henry Singleton, or maybe Claude Shannon, who was the father of information theory, who developed the transistor, by the way. And he said, he put his arm around me and he said, do you see all those houses out there? It was nighttime. You can see all the lights in the LA basin. And he said, one day we're going to control every person. This is 1963. My dad told me he had a very eerie feeling. He wasn't just talking about Los Angeles. He's talking about the world. That takes us, that's what, 60 some years ago. So, and then we look at technology, the things we are being told. Listen, the things we're being told were probably developed 10, 15, 20 years ago. And what's happening now is just the conditioning of the people to want to receive all of the technology, to want to be marked, to want to be chipped, to want to go along with the system. That's all we're in right now, Brennan. I believe it's the last stage to condition the masses to receive what's already been developed. And, you know, you start looking at Stargate and the technology that's necessary to connect everybody at the same time. It's here. It's just getting the people on board, upsetting the people, getting them to hate the right, hate the left, hate each other, not trust anybody, not trust anybody. We don't know anymore. That's why we're told don't turn to the left or right. Trust only in this book, because deception is going to be great. So it's the conditioning of the masses. And going back to our original beginning of the program, when it comes to the nation of Israel, oh, let me tell you, Brandon, as you know, they are being conditioned. How many Jews worldwide right now would raise their hand and say, is there somebody that can make the anti-Semitism stop? Is there somebody that will come to Israel and make the wars go away so we can just get along with our neighbors? I personally agree with you. Trump Trump's plans for the Middle East, they're not going to work. His peace plans, they're not going to work. The things he's doing here, I forgot. When I was in Israel, I forgot all about his Qatar deal for that base. Where is it again?
Idaho.
I forgot all about that. I mean, there's so many things that happen every day.
Well, let's not forget, I guess his son-in-law was bailed out for his building with Qatar, and the building just happens to be, on Fifth Avenue, 666 Fifth Avenue? I mean,
that's right.
You can't make this stuff up, right? And then Steve Witkoff, I think he got some help somewhere along the way with some of these guys. And then the golf clubs and whatnot in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and it's starting to be like, okay, wait a minute. I think we got some conflicts of interest here. But I was really rooting for him to be successful in the first term, and was really wanting him to be successful in the second term. But something has gone off course. But of course, I think, again, this is all part of the spiritual deception in the Ephesians 6 battle that we're in. And God is stepping back. And I think he is letting, he's using the sinful choices of man to accomplish his ultimate purpose. He's not the author of confusion. He's not the author of evil, but he steps back and lets man do what's in their heart, and he's going to order it all together, and we're going to see the end result. But here is what I ask you in closing. Antichrist, Gentile or Jew? False prophet, Gentile or Jew? I think the Antichrist is a Gentile. I think he comes out of the sea. I think the false prophet is Jewish. He comes out of the land. Now we're starting a new denomination over. I think the two witnesses are Elijah and Moses. Your thoughts on those two? Those four, actually.
If I were to lay it all out there and I had to categorize my guesses, I would guess that you are, I would guess the same as you. I believe Antichrist is Gentile. Every type of Antichrist in the Bible was Gentile. I had a great conversation with Mondo Gonzalez about that I'll be posting in the not too distant future. He has some very intriguing thoughts that have caused me to think about some things. The false prophet, Jewish makes the most sense, and there has to be something that's going to intrigue the Jews. It could be part of the false prophet, part of reasoning with Jews on religious things to maybe advance the Mosaic covenant and the building of the temple.
Yes.
Could very well be.
And then for him to set up the image in the temple and give it breath, which I find interesting. The word used for breath is the same used over in Acts for spirit. So it seems like a demonic spirit is breathed into that thing. But how is a prophet doing that in the temple unless he's Jewish and they're accepting him setting that thing up?
Well, yeah. Plus, interesting also that now you mentioned that in Revelation 13, it's the false prophet that tells everybody worship the beast. Mm-hmm. So you have this whole religious dynamic that's there, and it was Antichrist. And
the two witnesses,
Moses and Elijah. My guess is Moses and Elijah make the most sense, representing the law and the prophets. And we can go into other things. I know, people want to argue, is it Elisha and Elijah, because Elisha, not Enoch and Elijah, because Enoch didn't die. They go to that or whatever. But the most sense to me would be Moses and Elijah. However, it could be two, I would think, Jewish prophets who aren't in the Bible, but God has raised them up in the last days. But nevertheless, if I were to put it all in the categories, I would categorize it the same as you. And I know people out there say, well, don't you know the false prophet has to be the Pope? Well, the popes do some crazy things. There's no doubt. They tend to have two horns like a lamb and speak like a dragon. But I wouldn't pin my tail on the donkey of the Pope just yet.
I agree with you.
I tend, your thinking is what resonates the most with my thinking.
Oh, and then I have to mention Babylon. When I wrote the book, The Coming Religious Reich, in 2015, I said, look, folks, Revelation 18, Babylon is Babylon. Rome is Rome, Jerusalem's Jerusalem, Babylon's Babylon, okay? Oh, no, Babylon's New York, they would say, and they would send me all these books and emails and everything. And I said, look, I'm just trusting the Bible. And of course, all I had going on then was 2 Army War College professors calling for moving the United Nations to Babylon. That's all I had in 2015. Mm-hmm. Well, today we have the Fall Port. Folks who want to look it up, FAW, the Fall Port, being built like crazy. It's pretty well completed, the highway, the port, making it, if not one of the largest, the largest commercial port in the world, cutting right through next to Babel in 58 miles south of Baghdad, right through that area of Babylon, hooking in with Europe, a Eurocentric world government. I mean, just look at what's happening in Babylon. So I think Babylon's Babylon. What say you?
Yes, I do. I've probably had the same people sending me their books and videos and everything else about New York City and all these other dynamics. Listen, I get that. I get the thinking on it, but we have to stay with the Bible. If Babylon meant Babylon everywhere except for when you get to the book of Revelation, that makes no sense. And also, here's the other things. I was following all those stories with the military and things going on with that area years ago too. And what's interesting, you mentioned the Fa port. What people don't realize, and I'm sure the same people that are emailing you saying that nothing's really happening there. Well, behind the curtain over the last 4 years, millions and billions of dollars have been poured into that area. And this is fascinating to me, Brandon. They're always calling it, when you read the articles, if you can come across videos are really hard to come by, but you can find articles, you can find websites. They all call it the same thing. They call it Babylon. I find that fascinating that they actually call it Babylon. I'm reading it going, this is remarkable. And by the way, Neom, which, looked like, could Neom actually connect with Babylon somehow? I have friends that have presented that. Well, Neom, apparently Saudi Arabia, is in all kinds of financial trouble.
Yes, it is.
I heard today they're $4 trillion over budget already.
$4 trillion.
$4 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is. So, even to the U.S. government.
Even to the U.S. government.
Well, I'm going to get you back because I know we've got a lot coming, and I'd love to have you back on a more regular basis. I didn't know how it was going to go. I figured it would go well, but I didn't know. I never interviewed you before, and we're just clicking. But I want to talk about financial collapse. I want to talk about World War III. I want to talk about Putin and Russia and what seems to be, I don't know what's going on there. Europe wants World War III so bad. One of the French generals today telling the folks to prepare for your children to die fighting Russia. That's weird. I have a video of it. I want to talk about all that. Have you seen the cover of The Economist magazine? We've been showing it all last week. Have you seen their cover that's predicting what's coming in 2026? Have you seen that?
I have. I'm telling you, when I was in Israel,
you just got back from
Jordan,
Israel. I know.
I'm so out of touch with certain things. I got so focused on what was happening over there in the Mideast.
Well, I'll show it to you, and then you can come back on. Take a look at this. Okay. The World Ahead 2026. As you know, this is the big globalist publication, if not the biggest.
Yeah.
You got the Club K cargo over here shooting off missiles, which is in my 2018 documentary, the Club K cargo. Oh, wow. You can buy them for about $10 million. They get a satellite signal, the lid opens up, and up pops silos to shoot missiles off of. And it's in my documentary in 2018. Well, here it is on the cover of this Economist magazine, shooting at the 250th birthday cake of America, getting a satellite signal to do so. Then we have war everywhere. I don't know what's going on over here. I don't know if that's Trump's fist. Fight, fight, fight. Now they got a handcuff on him, tied back to the cake, and they're going to arrest him. I have no idea. Impeach him. He'll be out of here. They can put in Vance, their Peter Thiel protege. I don't know. But it's funny that is this the Marxist fist? I don't know, but it's over the American flag. We notice tanks, syringes, pills. We have two swords crossed like Islam. And you have a chart, which I thought was the stock market. But the other day I said, you know what? That's not the stock market. That's the death of the dollar. You have money on there with Lincoln. And you see all the dollars falling off the map. I mean, there is so much in here. And here's The Economist magazine. Now, the question is, will that be 2026? They like to predict things like they did about COVID with the children in the hospital beds and the nurses during the Olympics before COVID. Are they a couple years off? I have no idea. I find it interesting on the chart. Putin or Xi Jinping is on one side. Trump is on the other side with the dollar collapse. We got Brazil, Russia, India, China, the BRICS system, and all those nations throwing in with them. But study this. Let me know when you can come back. And let's get into the economy, World War III, cashless society, Bible prophecy, wars, rumors of wars, plagues, pestilence, and all of that. What do you say?
That would be great. I'd love to come back. I'd love to have you on my program, too. I think it'd be great. And that cover There's a lot going on there. Boy, we could do like hours just on that cover alone.
Good.
Wow.
Well, we look forward to having you back. And in the meantime, I want to promote your website and your broadcast. Here is his X, if you want to follow him on X, at Pastor Tom Hughes, at Pastor Tom Hughes. And then Hope for, F-O-R, hopeforourtimes.com is his website. hopeforourtimes.com. You come highly recommended by Dr. Andy Woods and Patrick Wood. I've known who you are for a while, but I asked those guys last week, who's got his contact info? And so I said, I gotta get him on. And it was actually my son, our vice president of operations, that said, you need to get on Pastor Tom Hughes. So I said, yeah, I know he is. I should do that. And he said, well, Andy he goes on Andy's program. Patrick Wood goes on his program. I think he's in our circles. I said, great, let's do it. So I'm glad we made this connection, and let's make it something we do often.
That sounds great, and I'm going to get you on here too. So looking forward to it. It was wonderful. Great to finally meet you.
You too, Tom. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Check out his
God bless
stuff.
you, Brandon.
You too, my friend. Check out his stuff. There it is, at Pastor Tom Hughes, and hopeforourtimes.com. Fascinating, a little bit over an hour with Pastor Tom Hughes. I didn't know how long it was going to go tonight. I was not going to set a time limit because I just thought, well, we'll just have a good time. And we're going to do more of that. I think we should do this in the future and open up the phone lines as well. What do you guys think? All right. All right. We're going to be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
It is a proven fact that China is in our power grid. They could bring down our grid anytime they want. Will you be able to communicate with family and friends? Well, I will, because they and myself have a satellite phone from worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. All you got to do is go outside, acquire a satellite, dial the number, hit send, and you are talking to your family and friends, even when all the cell towers are down. Worldviewtalk.com. All right, joining me now is Colonel Rob Maness. We're going to talk about Venezuela and potentially a military strike on that country. But first, how about the Democrats in the House and the Senate who were telling military soldiers and officers, do not obey any illegal orders? What does he think of that? And first up, here is a clip from one of the U.S. senators who was in that.
Let me read you what Senator Lindsey Graham said about your video. You owe it to the men and women in the military to be specific about what you are talking about. What these senators and House members did was unnerving, and it was unconscionable to suggest that the President of the United States is issuing unlawful orders without giving an example.
Yeah. So for me, my primary concern is the use of U.S. military on American shores, in our cities and in our streets. We've seen now the courts overturn the deployment of U.S. military into our streets, including here in Washington, D.C. When you look at these videos coming out of places like Chicago, it makes me incredibly nervous that we're about to see people in law enforcement, people in uniform military get nervous, get stressed, shoot at American civilians. It is a very, very stressful situation for these law enforcement and for the communities on the ground. So it was basically a warning to say, like, if you're asked to do something, particularly against American citizens, you have the ability to go to your JAG officer and push back.
And with these service members calling you, couldn't you have done a video saying just what you just said? If you are asked to do something, if you are worried about whether it is legal or not, you can do this. It does imply that the president is having illegal orders, which you have not seen.
I think for us, it was just a statement widely, right? We say very quickly and to all the folks who come to us, This is the process. Go to your JAG officer, ask them for explanation, for top cover, for their view on things. We do that on a case-by-case basis, but we wanted to speak directly to the volumes of people who had come to us on this.
And it is very clear that no one should follow an illegal order, but it's very murky when you look at what is an illegal order. And if you go into morally, ethically, that's a pretty tough thing to look at and say, how do I navigate this?
Look, if you're going back to Nuremberg, right, that, well, they told me to do it, that's why I murdered people, is not an excuse. If you look at popular culture, there's like, you watch, A Few Good Men, like we have plenty of examples since World War II in Vietnam where people were told to follow illegal orders and they did it and they were prosecuted for it. So the best thing for people to do is go to their JAG officer, their local law enforcement or a legal officer in their unit, and ask for some explanation, ask for help. And that's what we've been advising people to do.
All right, Colonel, what do you make of all this? Welcome back to the broadcast.
We call them the Seditious Six, Brannon. That's what this group is. And that was Slotkin there, Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former CIA analyst. Never done anything operationally at all, ever. Okay, number one. Number two, the leader of this crowd is really U.S. Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona. Let me give you his military rank. His military rank is retired United States Navy captain. That's the equivalent of a full colonel, which is what I retired as from the United States Air Force. That man is subject to not only civilian law, but military law because he's a retired officer, just like I am. And here's where they made the huge mistake, and Martha was all over it there, and that is they put a statement out, which I've made this statement before. You've heard me say it probably on one of your shows, that we train our young men and women in the military, both enlisted and officers, do not follow unlawful orders because of the incidents in Vietnam where a lieutenant gave orders to kill unarmed civilians and they didn't disobey the order. That's why we train them to do those kind of things, because of the Nuremberg trials and the excuse that the Nazi soldiers used, well, I was just following orders. That's why we give that training. If that is all they had done, I think it would have been fine, but that's not what they did. They just came on and they made a formal video, the six of them, reminding everybody that you don't have to obey an unlawful order without clarifying or specifying which orders were unlawful. Look, I've said it many times. Brandon, the COVID-19 vaccine order was unlawful. It was proven in the courts by the young service members that took them to court to say that, and they got judges to acknowledge that it was unlawful. The Secretary of War has since come on board and said it was unlawful. We have a whole operation going on to reinstate folks that were harmed by that unlawful order today, so that their refusal of that order won't be held against them for the rest of their lives and for the rest of their careers. But that's not what these men and women did. They put a blanket statement out as representatives of senior elected officials and a retired U.S. senior officer, Mark Kelly, saying, hey, just want to remind you, you don't have to follow unlawful orders. And now they're being questioned, just like Slotkin was questioned there, and they can't say what the unlawful orders were. Look, you may politically disagree that the President of the United States puts the National Guard forces on the ground in places like Chicago, but there are over 100 years of precedent, 100 years of precedent that allows that and makes it a constitutionally lawful order in order to do that. These folks are calling for mass insubordination based on political opinions. The young men and women that serve this country and risk their lives for this country shouldn't be put under that type of misinformation pressure, and that's what they're doing. And that's why Secretary of War Hegseth is investigating retired U.S. Navy Captain Mark Kelly as appropriate under Article 94 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And I say that because I'm confident that that investigation is valid, and we will see what the outcome of it is, and see if he actually did violate the law and what the potential charges could be or punishment, because you can be punished under non-judicial punishment purposes under the Uniform Code of Military Justice too. And it doesn't matter if you're retired or active duty or reserve officer. All of us are subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Now, there's a lot of confusion between the civilian law and the military law. The military law maximum penalty is the death penalty, and that's what the president was posting about the other night.
So give me what you think will happen, the outcome here for someone like Kelly. Is this, again, politics back and forth, nothing will happen, or do you think they'll actually bring him up and court-martial him?
Look, they started it as a political effort. The Seditious Six did. But at some point, and the point where it was removed from politics is when Hegseth gave his directive to do an investigation. That's where the demarcation line is. And I fully expect there to be a full investigation with the report and that some accountability will take place on retired U.S. Navy Captain Mark Kelly, because he fits the bill in the treason and seditious UCMJ article where he's advocating for the destruction of civil authority over the military. That means to give cause to an effort to destroy that authority. And that's why they crossed the line. They did not specify what orders that they think were unlawful. And they didn't even tell folks like Slotkin tried to do, go to see your JAG officer. Well, I'll remind you that Secretary Hegseth fired all three senior JAG officers, the lawyers in the military, because they didn't defend the Constitution against the COVID unlawful order, my friend. So that's not necessarily a reliable resource to go to see if something's lawful or unlawful, because they are so infested with the ideology of Marxism and leftism and progressivism, whatever ism you want to put on it that's in the Democrat Party. Right now, the lawyers in the military are infested with that still to this day, below those senior levels. So we've got a challenge here. Kelly's got a big challenge, but the political part of it should be cut off at the beginning of this investigation, and it's investigated under the Article 94 of the UCMJ, and the judicial process and investigatory process and discipline process of the U.S. Armed Forces should take over from there. That's what we hope to see.
Let's move to Venezuela. Department of War did repost this. Air Force's Southern Security through Air Power B-52 crews from Minot conducted a bomber attack demo in the Southcom. So a lot of activity. We got the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier there with lots of firepower sitting up on the deck with those planes. What do you think is going to happen in Venezuela or with Venezuela?
Well, I think Maduro's going to leave. That's what I think. And I think he's going to leave one way or the other, unfortunately. I think it's a very high-risk decision to go kinetic with any type of ground force invasion. But I think the more likely effort is that he will leave. And the second most likely is that there will be an air operation to further convince him to leave. And we'll continue to remove their forces, those that protect him.
And then we do what? Install somebody we agree with?
I would think not. There are elected political leaders that are acknowledged as the winners of the election that Maduro stole, which is why most political leadership around the world calls him illegitimate. So those elected leaders should be able to take hold. The problem is that all of his team has to be removed. And then you have to remove the loyalists from the armed forces and the law enforcement forces and those kind of things in order to give that new government a chance to reestablish Venezuela as a free society. And it can be free and prosperous. I mean, they have more oil than anybody else in the world. So.
Do you think a strike is imminent in Venezuela?
No.
No?
I do not.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Taiwan, Japan, China?
I think it's great that the Japanese prime minister said that they were going to put their, I think it's their medium-range surface-to-air missiles within, 68 kilometers of the island of Taiwan. That's what deterrence looks like. It's about time that our allies started stepping up to the plate and putting their resources behind the effort to deter the Chinese Communist Party. That's fantastic news.
Mm-hmm. If you go to worldviewreport.com, folks, you do know it's your daily aggregated news site. There's so many articles we put up there we don't have time to get to, but there's one. Taiwan center stage in the Trump-Xi phone call as state media touts islands return to China. As Japan deploys missiles near Taiwan, China blasts right-wing forces taking Tokyo to disaster. So much more there. By the way, let's go back real quick to Venezuela.
Okay.
What do you think is going to go on with Hezbollah there, Iran, Russia, China? Thoughts?
Well, I think that's something that a lot of folks that are looking at this are missing, because people tend to focus on what I call the sexy, which is the kinetic activity or special operations raids or covert operations or the possibility thereof, instead of looking at the strategic effort. The strategic effort is one of, has been stated by this administration, that we are reestablishing our dominance in the Western Hemisphere. We are securing the Western Hemisphere. Essentially, without saying it, they're returning to the old Monroe Doctrine, where we said that if you're a foreign entity and you come into our hemisphere, that's our backyard, you're not going to be able to get strong here. And that's what the big picture is over the strategic umbrella of this, is about China, Russia, Iran, any of the other entities that have tried to come into the Western Hemisphere and want to take it over. I mean, China has been very successful with its Belt and Road Initiative. It's got companies operating both ends of the Panama Canal. That Panama Canal is the worldwide choke point for U.S. military forces if we ever, God forbid, had to go to war, not just against China, but go to a world war level of effort. That choke point has to be under our control. Not to mention that our bodies, our American kids, went down there and built that thing, and tens of thousands of them died doing it. We should be in control of that from a national security perspective, and really a economic perspective too, quite frankly. And the Chinese have done their level best to take it over, and it's time for them to be pushed out, and the Russians too. And Venezuela is one of the key entry points for China and Russia in this hemisphere, has been for a long time, and not to mention the Iranians.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is in French or English, but let's listen. French. A French journal's telling everybody over there, prepare to lose your children in a war with Russia.
Parce qu'il n'est pas prêt à accepter.
Well, we got some subscripts here. Here we go.
De perdre ses enfants, parce qu'il faut dire les choses. De souffrir économiquement parce que les priorités iront à de la production de défense, par exemple. Si on n'est pas prêt à ça, alors on est en risque. Mais je pense qu'on a la force d'âme. La France a toujours démontré sa force d'âme dans les moments difficiles. Et là, on est dans le moment où il faut en parler. Il faut en parler dans vos communes. Parce que spontanément, c'est pas des lectures du dimanche, c'est pas quelque chose d'accessible facilement. On peut avoir le sentiment que c'est loin, et c'est vrai que ça reste loin. La mécanique, c'est pas des chars russes qui débarquent.
So prepare, the headline, Slay News, top French general warns public, prepare to lose your children in war with Russia.
What is a
I don't think
health
these
share?
guys are
We
going to
share
let...
offers different approach to healthcare.
We need to stop that. I don't think these guys are going to let any kind of peace plan happen over there. I think they're just going to keep throwing monkey wrenches in the gears. What do you think?
Their children will be crushed on Russian tank treads if they continue the path that they're on. That French general is right, and he's trying to convince his people that that's a possibility if they do nothing. No, the problem is, Brandon, is what they are doing and have done in conjunction with the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and all those in the bureaucracy of the U.S. government that are continuing to try to stop this man that's in the White House from achieving a peaceful solution to this fight sooner rather than later. And that's what that's about. It's unfortunate that the Europeans, as weak as they are, their cultures and societies and governments have been infested with Islamists. They're taking it over, and they continue to let themselves be drawn into this. The Russians have trouble gaining a couple of meters a day in Ukraine. They are winning technically, but there's no evidence that they had the capability or the political desire to go rolling across Western Europe to the coast and do a Hitler type operation, in spite of what all of the propagandists in the West, including here in our government in the United States, your tax dollars are paying for it, are trying to get you to believe. Stop listening to this. Everybody around the world, in Europe, in the United States, and support this peace plan. This peace plan includes the Istanbul Agreement that the Russians and the Ukrainians signed up to in March of 2022 before the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson put the kibosh on it. It's ridiculous that all of these kids are dying every single day on both sides of this war. Totally unnecessary. It's totally unnecessary. And you know what? Our God, Yahweh, should damn all those to hell forever and ever that want to stop this process.
Any other news item you're watching you should tell our audience about, since it's been a while since we've had you on?
Well,
by the way, you were away because you were one of the issues you were dealing with a family issue relative. So we got people asking us where you were last week. You're back, but you had a family issue you had to deal with, a sick relative.
Yeah, we were up in Indiana on my wife's family's farm and enjoying some time with family. We had some sick family members up there that we wanted to make sure we were spending some time with and seeing how they were doing and see what we could do to help the folks that are in our family that are there helping out. So we need to take some time to do that. That's what's going on, Well, since the last time we talked, we've elected a communist Marxist to the mayorship of the, largest city in the country, 8 million people, New York City. I think it's, it's in the top 20 of major economies of the world among countries. And hopefully he won't destroy it. What I'm hoping for is that this meeting between he and Trump signifies Trump as a Christian's influence over Mamdani. Maybe he will evangelize to him and proselytize to him and get him convinced that he needs to be a Christian and adopt prosperity and freedom instead of tyranny and poverty and death. That's what I pray for.
Your show is each and every day at worldviewtube.com, 2 p.m. Central, right after mine. 2 p.m.
Yes,
Central sir. At worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com, and of course, robmaness.com, robmaness.com. As always, Colonel, great to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. God bless you. Thanks for having me.
You too, my friend. Thank you. And we'll be right back after this very short break.
True beauty isn't applied. It's nourished from within. Bella Grace Elixir, a luxurious, scientifically crafted blend designed to restore radiance, vitality, and strength at a cellular level. At the heart of Bella Grace Elixir lies cat's claw, a powerful herb from the Amazon known for its ability to control inflammation and protect collagen. With Verisol collagen peptides, it goes beyond the surface, stimulating your body's natural collagen production to reduce fine lines, improve skin elasticity, and promote real, visible change. Bella Grace Elixir doesn't stop at collagen. It includes astaxanthin, one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, astaxanthin protects your skin from harmful UV rays and environmental stress, while locking in hydration and promoting a radiant, youthful glow. Experience the power of nature with Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Discover the science behind Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Read powerful testimonials from doctors and real customers who've experienced life-changing results, and explore other wellness products from Bella Grace. Bella Grace Elixir is more than just a product. It's a solution. Visit melissahousebg.com today.
Joining me now is one of our national security experts, David Pyne. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us. And David, what do you make now of this peace plan that President Trump now, I guess, is going to force onto Zelensky? Who wrote this thing? Sounds like a It's like Zelensky's being asked to give away a lot of stuff here. I don't know if he's going to go for it. Who wrote this?
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be with you today. This 28 piece plan was written by Witkoff, along with input from I think it's Dmitry, or rather Kirill Dmitriev, who is the chief of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund. They met between October 26th and 28th in Miami. Hammered this out. I think they've probably made some changes since then. But essentially, it was those two that wrote it. So the U.S. and Russia combined, diplomatic representatives along with them, and then it was subsequently modified in Ukraine's favor by with input from Ukraine's former defense minister and I think current secretary of their National Security Council, Rustem Ustinov, or I think Umarov is his name. Added three different clauses, I think, that are unacceptable to Russia. That would be the clause, Article 6, which says that Ukraine can have up to 600,000 troops. Doesn't say if those are active duty or reserve, but presumably if they were active duty, that would be a threefold increase in the current size of their army, which is really contradicts initial reports about the Trump peace plan, which said that it would cut Ukraine's army in half or even by 250%, according to the Economic Times and New York Post. And then the second issue that Russia likely has with the deal is that while it would return the rest of the Donbass region to Russia, which is about 12% that Ukraine currently holds, that territory, it would not be permissible for Russian troops to enter it. So it would be a neutral, demilitarized zone. That's definitely unacceptable to Russia. Perhaps if they allowed militia troops from the Donetsk People's Republic, that would be acceptable to Russia. Or if they at least allowed Russian National Guard troops, while continuing to ban regular Russian army troops, I think that would be acceptable compromise language. And then the third one is another red line for Russia, is that it would entail $100 billion in Russian reparations to pay for Ukrainian reconstruction, with the U.S. getting 50% of the profits. The Russians aren't going to agree to any reparations, not so much as $1. And Trump himself has basically said that we wouldn't invest a single red cent of U.S. taxpayer money into Ukraine either. So those are the three sticking points. I think the rest of the 25 points are broadly acceptable to Russia. So we're getting really close. The only other issue that I think Russia will have with this proposal is that it does not ban long-range strike weapons, offensive strike weapons with Ukraine in terms of combat drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, and even F-16 aircraft, which at least in terms of NATO F-16s, can be dual capable, meaning they can carry nuclear bombs, B-61 bombs. Those are all red lines that Russia is not going to accept by any means. But I do see, at least with a couple of those clauses, I see some potential compromise language, which could, where the Russians could meet us halfway.
And now I guess we have a 24-point European counter proposal that I'm looking at right now here on the screen.
Yeah, so initially, that's what was shared with me, these 24 points. It's actually 28-point plan, according to Reuters. So it's a little bit longer than that. But basically, the gist of these articles are accurate. There are a few additional details as well. But basically, it would say there's no limit on the size of increases the limit of the Ukrainian army from 600,000 to 800,000 troops. So instead of 3 times larger, it would be 4 times larger potentially. And really, all those numbers are completely meaningless, because it's unclear that Ukraine could even maintain a peacetime army of 200,000 as it currently fields in the war on the battlefield, because there's just so much opposition to serving in the Ukrainian military right now. They would just probably have to keep press gaining Ukrainian men to serve in the military. It's possible that Russia could accept something like that in terms of 600,000 troops, but it would have to be very clear to state that Ukrainian military, in terms of active duty troops, it would have to be 200,000, and then the rest would be reserve troops. Then it also says instead of 100 billion of reparations from Russia, it would be up to 300 billion. It talks about how NATO would not be allowed to permanently deploy troops in Ukraine, but it could do so on a quote unquote temporary basis. We found that in the case of U.S. military deployments in Eastern Europe, so-called temporary deployments have quickly become permanent, where the troops have stayed there for a period of 4 years or more. And so basically that doesn't give any concessions to Russia at all. Probably the biggest difference is that the Donbass region would at least the part that's currently controlled by Ukraine and the Western Donetsk region would remain under Ukrainian control. So I think there's maybe one other clause that's unacceptable to Russia, but basically this is a big middle finger from the EU and Ukraine side in Trump's face that he should really, respond quite harshly to, and he should just respond by telling Zelensky and EU leaders that we're not going to negotiate with you guys because you're trying to kill the proposal. These are poison pills that will ensure that the war will continue indefinitely until next summer, when I anticipate that Ukraine will run out of troops and Russian forces will advance all the way to the Dnieper River, conquering 45% of Ukraine's territory.
Wowza. Well, apparently Europe has no plan of stopping. Look at this headline from Slay News today. Top French general warns public, prepare to lose your children in war with Russia. David?
Yeah, and there's so much hysteria on the part of EU and NATO leaders. Whether it's Sweden, telling their citizens to maybe build bomb shelters. World War III is on the table. Finland, we've seen stuff like that. Germany, their high command is saying that within 2 years, Russia will invade NATO itself, either the Baltics or possibly Poland, and now France as well. So, and of course, the UK is the chief offender in terms of raising hysteria against Russia. So all these countries are, they're really just trying, by prolonging the war, they argue that if we make any concessions to Russia to end the war, then they're just going to come back and invade NATO later, but this will basically, assuming that Putin is kind of a Hitler-esque figure, it will just whet his appetite, that he got away with something, and then he'll come back for more later. In fact, it's the exact opposite. If we satisfy Russia's minimum conditions, there will be no reason for Russia to go to war with Ukraine or NATO in the future. Whereas if we continue escalating the war with these long-range missile strikes and arms shipments, the chances of a direct nuclear war with Russia and NATO go up exponentially.
All right, so give us your thoughts on Venezuela. Some are saying that we're close to seeing something maybe soon, a strike. Some are saying maybe even today. I don't know if I buy that, but we'll see. What's about to happen in Venezuela? I know some guys off the record don't want to come on camera and say it, but they tell me that they're afraid this could be a Vietnam.
Well, I was talking to my friend Brandon Weicker, who interviewed me about this yesterday, and he said that his sources, and he's much better connected than I am in terms of sources within the U.S. government, have said we're saying that the plan was essentially to start the U.S. airstrikes on Venezuela last Tuesday. So I think though that schedule has been moved back because Richard Grenell, who's kind of Trump's special envoy for Latin America, essentially. Was trying to negotiate a deal with a Venezuelan dictator, Maduro, who's a Marxist, if not communist, to leave power in exchange for the U.S. giving him a hefty sum of money, maybe 50 million. I haven't heard any figures, maybe 100 million, maybe less, but essentially to leave power and have a successor give us their oil and rare earth mineral rights and go into exile in the country of his choice. The problem is, as Brandon explained to me, neither Russia or China are willing to accept him and give him asylum. because they actually, this is all speculative, but according to his sources, Russia and China are likely wanting the U.S. to invade Venezuela for exactly the reason you mentioned, which is in the hopes that we will experience a Vietnam in Latin America and suffer thousands, if not tens of thousands of American casualties in a war that could go on for several months, if not years.
And now I see as China deploys missiles near Taiwan, China blasts right-wing forces, taking Tokyo to disaster.
Yeah, so President Trump, it was reported today that President Trump had a call with President Xi Jinping of China, in which, Xi Jinping demanded the return of Taiwan and, said that we're currently, China and the U.S. are currently in a situation of increased mutual cooperation, but he just needs essentially the return of Taiwan to ensure that cooperation continues. He didn't specifically threaten a Chinese military invasion, but we know from all of our DoD sources that is absolutely on the table. And Xi has set a deadline of 2027 for unification with China and Taiwan. Of course, Taiwan has never comprised part of the People's Republic of China, but some of their folks refer to it as reunification. But in any case, that is the one sticking point, and to me it's the greatest potential nuclear tinderbox in the world today. So hopefully, Trump can encourage the Taiwanese to make some compromises that allow them to continue their self-rule, but mollify China so they don't actually give the go-ahead to invade Taiwan.
What's your take? Have you studied the cover of The Economist magazine saying, here's what's ahead for 2026? We've done several shows on it. It looks like war is on the cover. It looks like dollar collapse is on the cover. I even see the Club K cargo system that's in my documentary from 2018 of missiles being shot to America, the 250th birthday cake, command from a satellite. Have you studied that? Because there's a lot going on that cover that the premier globalist magazine is predicting for what's ahead in 2026. What do you see coming in 2026?
Well, no, I actually haven't seen the cover of The Economist magazine.
Oh, I'll show it to you, yeah. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, if it's similar to what the predictions that I've seen before, there's typically those type of magazines or even national security journals have about 5 different flashpoints that they predict could escalate to war. And we know the globalists want war. We know the neocons want war, whether it's, Marco Rubio or CIA Director John Ratcliffe or others within the administration, perhaps even the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a kind of a neocon ally. Although he did go on this trip with Army Secretary Dan Driscoll to, kind of threaten Zelensky. He was present. I don't think he really supports the Trump plan, but he was present when Driscoll told Zelensky that he needs to take the deal because this war's been going on too long. But I do think that I think Taiwan is certainly threatened by China. It's very possible that China could make their move this year. I'm heartened by the fact that China has not yet had another massive naval exercise as they had in April. They had 3 last year, and they've had 1 in April. I'm starting to think that it's very possible that they will not have a straight Thunder 2025 B exercise, as they already had the A exercise, and typically A implies that there's going to be a second one in the same year. So I think that was their initial plan, but for whatever reason, I think Xi Jinping is relatively satisfied with what Trump told him in terms of basically agreeing to tamper down on any independence moves or rhetoric from the Taiwanese side. But of course, the Japanese Prime Minister has kind of thrown a monkey wrench into the works with her statements that Japan likely would go to war with China if they invade Taiwan. So that's certainly an issue. And again, as we discussed, World War III is still on the table. If this deal doesn't go through, World War III is on the table with Russia, between Russia and NATO as well. And then there's been rumors that Iran could get hit again by the U.S. and Israel They likely have nuclear weapons and super EP satellites. So any of those 2-3 countries could be nation-ending wars for the United States. Venezuela, I think the threat's a lot less, and it's far more justified. It's in our hemisphere. It's part of the Monroe Doctrine, essentially, that the Trump administration seems to be refocusing on, and it's in line with their national defense strategy, which prioritizes homeland and hemispheric defense over any threats from Russia in Eastern Europe or from China and the Western Pacific.
Here it is, folks, dpine.substack.com. You can also follow him on X at AmericaFirstCon, or dpine.substack.com. As always, we appreciate your national security updates. Look forward to more, but 2026 is going to be a busy news year. It sounds like it, right?
I think it will be. Yeah, it's every year it just keeps getting a little bit worse until we get to Armageddon.
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? Oh, wow. dpine.substack.com. Thank you, as always, for your great analysis.
Thanks, Brandon.
David
Always a
Pyne,
pleasure.
you too, my friend. David Pyne checking in. Check out his site, dpine.substack.com. We'll be right back after this very short break.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
Joining me now is Anni Cyrus. Anni, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me back, Brandon.
Let's talk about a lot of stuff. But let's start with your wheelhouse, which is, of course, Iran, where you are from. Here we have Iran International News reporting. Iran security chief says no path left, but direct clash with Israel. What do you make of this?
So over the weekend, a successful Israeli attack took out the second-ranked man of Hezbollah, who was an Iranian Lebanese. He's dead. And after that happened, a lot of IRGC commanders and, security chief and a lot of heads came out saying what they did left us with no choice or no path left but direct confrontation is the word they used. If you remember a while ago, I said they are ready for the next phase of their war, but they're going to need to have a good reason. Looks like, now mind you, this is very big, huge. I reported at the moment I got confirmation that he has been taken out by Israeli attack. So to them, it's huge. They lost a big name. It's second rank. They're going to have to replace him. Hard thing to do. So it looks like they're using this as the excuse they were looking for to fund the Hezbollah further, first of all, to rise attacks by Hezbollah towards Israel, and possibly they might even start attacking Israel themselves. There are 2,000 missiles ready.
And their goal is to overwhelm the Iron Dome with 2,000 missiles at a crack, which was the last time they had, 500?
200.
200. Now they're going to do 1,000. 2,000.
Well, that is what's being reported, but based on their own talks, when I watch them, which is very painful, they are not going to use all 2,000 at one attack or one shot. They're going to break it into 4 back-to-back of 500 at a time. That's at least how they're planning to do it, because one of them was very recently interviewed on the Iran network and was asked that the budget you just put out of our money while our people are starving, literally starving. This month, Iran announced that they can't even cover any of the equal to our welfare for people. Like even families of martyrs are not going to have money this month to feed themselves. So that's how much people are starving. So the question was, with this economy, with this situation, why are you spending money to get these 2,000 missiles ready? And this was the response. We're going to need to do the series of 4 attacks, 500 missile per attack within 4 hours to achieve crippling Iron Dome. At least that's their strategy, or that's what they're putting out on their own networks.
Right. All right, let's switch over to Mamdani.
Can I insert one more thing?
Yes.
I want your audience to remember this very Hezbollah in very Lebanon that Israel is still fighting and doing great with. It's the same Lebanon that $230 million of our tax money went to their government 3 weeks ago. Just figured I should remind people.
Yeah, exactly. All right. There was a Substack written by a guy, I don't know who he is, but he wrote a Substack, and here's the title: Dominance Wrapped in Diplomacy, henceforth known as the Mamdani maneuver. Professor Toto explains the move that confused the crowd but cornered the socialists. This guy seems to be buying the idea that Trump's playing, 4D chess or 5D chess or whatever. Trump was not charming the socialist. He was cornering him. Okay, I'm not buying all of this. And you wrote one, basically, let's see where yours is. Trump and the socialists, from ICE to Israel, the contradictions were endless. Okay, so kind of a interesting one by you, an interesting one by the other guy. I'm not buying the 5D chess or he was cornering Mamdani or any of that. Are you buying any of that?
Well, no, of course I'm not buying that, but I'm going to be very mean for a second, from one Substacker to another. First of all, anyone who doesn't use their real name, I don't take you serious. If you need a stage name to hide behind, you're not fighting for truth. You're fighting for clicks and subscription. Secondly, the man's name is Mamdani, not Mandami. At least get the name of your subject correct. But the problem is when you have AI write your Substack, AI will misspell Arabic and Farsi and Urdu and Pashto names. Also will mispronounce it on your picture thumbnail you created with your AI as well. You can't even get the name of it's Mamdani.
Well, you notice I struggled saying his name because I thought, what's wrong here? But I didn't pick up on it as quick as you did. I'm like, wait a minute, is that? You did notice, if you go back and watch the tape again later, I was struggling with how to say it because I didn't think this was I didn't think that's how you say his name, but I was using my phonics. But you make a great point. He isn't even spelling his name right.
That's the thing. I'm not going to take, I'm glad his writing, I'm glad his AI is writing something pro-Trump for him. But this is the problem nowadays. Anybody with access to computer and an email and an AI can just have an opinion. So yes, this guy, as I said, he's writing for clicks. Here's the thing. I don't play chess, but I'm a very good chess player. And one thing I learned very early, maybe 10, 11 years old, was if you run out of moves in chess, you can buy time, but you can't reverse the ending. And that's where we are with your 3D master chess player. Trump is out of moves. This is why he's grabbing onto anyone who's willing to shake his hand. That's what I point out.
Well, it didn't go well for President Trump this weekend, but with Ivan Raiklin. Ivan Raiklin on social media he's not sounding too pro-Trump right now. He's really defending Marjorie Taylor Greene and saying, well, he didn't say Trump by name, but he's like, who's the traitor? She wasn't pushing the shot. She wasn't doing this. She wasn't doing that. I mean, some of these people are really starting to turn on Trump, and yet they're not saying him by name, but I think we all know what they mean.
Well, if I could be a little picky on terminology here, I don't think they're turning on Trump. I think they're finally realizing who they were supporting. A lot of us saw it from the beginning, but we have the tendency to tell the truth no matter what. Yes, I've noticed a lot of people are starting to realize what they were defending. They're walking away from non-stop defending whatever Trump does And now they look back and they realize, oh yeah, who pushed the jab? Who did the lockdowns? Who did this? One by one, it's just their memory is coming back because their coping mechanism to love their guy is fading away.
Yeah. Well, did anyone see the, well, here it is, in fact. Jack Posobiec. I don't think he's the sharpest guy in the... Okay, I don't think Jack Posobiec is the sharpest guy in the room. Isn't he the one that told us that Mary is the perpetual virgin, Logan? Yeah, he's not a real sharp knife in the drawer, in my opinion. But watch his facial expression and listen to this. But this is what happens when you throw in and tie your whole brand, in my opinion, around Donald Trump, which we refused to do, by the way, because we kind of saw or thought what was coming, kind of thought it.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought.
All right, you see his eyebrows? Okay, we're out of here.
A lot more than I would have thought.
Yeah, we're out of here.
I think he's, I want him to do...
Yeah, well, sorry, Jack. Sorry, Jack. Isn't he one of the guys that waved the Epstein three-ring binder and looked so stupid? That's how I think he looked. And now he does
yes,
it. But you know what? This is what happens when you build your whole brand around an administration. And we have never done that. We didn't do that in Trump term 1. We weren't doing it in Trump term 2. Because we know politicians. And as I like to say, we're going to be here long after they've come and gone, and we are not for sale. But some of these guys, man, talk about a bromance. Why does anyone take someone like Jack Posobiec seriously? And the worst, I agree, Logan. The worst is Benny Johnson. These guys are, Logan said he might as well have pom-poms out there. Put a skirt on and start dancing around for President Trump. Benny?
Well, let me tell you why, Brandon. Again, technology has made a lot of terminologies blending into each other. You're not a podcaster, okay? You've been doing this for over 30 years. You're an author. You're an expert. You are a broadcaster. So, or in my case, I am an expert by life experience of experiencing what I fight. A lot of these people, I'm not going to even start naming, but a lot of these people, including Jack, they became somebody when they grabbed a webcam and a microphone in 2016 and started saying Trump, 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 Trump. When your entire foundation is built on Trump, what do? You just keep saying Trump. And you every day you pray that Trump doesn't turn into a monster where your platform will clash, because you don't have a platform based on you, your expertise, your experience, your knowledge. Name one expertise of Jack Posobiec. What's his expertise? Nothing. Did he have to escape tyranny? No. Did he have to serve present time under Russia? No. Was he kidnapped? Did he spend 18 years of his life studying red-green axis? No. So these people have no other choice. To stay relevant, to have millions of followers, they have to stay with the same train that got them here, because they didn't get here on their own.
Well, I think you said it well. And why people, again, watch this is beyond me. I mean,
because people need false hope. People are afraid.
They're
terrified.
They need hopium.
Yep. Exactly. And some of these actors, I call them actors because that's how it is. They adapted a script and a persona and started playing that role, so they're actors. Some of them are great at feeding hopium to people. Look how many of them are trying to switch train and somehow jump from the whole 2016 Trump train into now Charlie Kirk train.
Yes. Yes. All right, let's go to Meet the Press. Here's Mamdani. Listen to this.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it." So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do.
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
You've also said in the past that President Trump has engaged in a, quote, attack on our democracy. You've called him a despot. Do you still believe President Trump is a threat to the democracy?
Everything that I've said in the past, I continue to believe. And that's the thing that I think is important in our politics, is that we don't shy away from where we have disagreements, but we understand what it is that brings us to that table. Because I'm not coming into the Oval Office to make a point or make a stand. I'm coming in there to deliver for New Yorkers. And a few weeks ago, I was asked by a reporter 3 words to describe myself. I said, New York City. And that's what animated that conversation. How do we deliver for the people of New York City?
In that.
All right. There you go. Annie?
Exactly. Again, taking it back to my Substack that came out this morning, I literally said Trump changed every narrative of his. Mamdani stood by everything he has said. I concluded the Substack by saying Mamdani stood by his values. So what has changed? Trump. Now, I give some options of why I think Trump might have changed, but there you go, right there. I said Trump might have shrugged a little up, a little higher. There you go. Trump may have shrugged it off as of calling Mamdani, but Mamdani didn't take back a single word. He made it clear his views haven't changed. His ideology hasn't changed, and his plan for New York hasn't changed either. That's the thing. When he says, how can we deliver for people of New York City, it's his platform. He's using the terminology of delivering to people of New York, but what is his delivery? Federal grocery stores and, free housing and all that, right? Extra tax, rising taxes up, soon having Sharia police. I have been saying for the last 5 years, for whatever reason, now I know the reason, but this is not the place to say the reason. Muslims in all fronts, they have stopped lying. They've been brutally honest with us. Every single one of them tell the truth. The question is, are we hearing the truth, or are we sugarcoating what we hear for our own comfort?
All right. So we're being told that President Trump has signed an executive order formally designating Secretary Rubio to begin the process of designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. So to begin the process, how long is that going to take? I mean, why do we need to begin the process, and how long is that going to take?
Probably another 25 years.
That's my concern.
And let's say that post said he signed an executive order and just designated them. What difference does it make? Not to sound like a Hillary, but what difference does it make? What are we going to do with that designation? Remember how we easily removed the designated militia of Al-Sharaa when he
removed the $10 million bounty on his head? Boom, right?
Exactly. So he's feeling the heat from his supporters when he has back to back bring these jihadists into the Oval Office. He's trying to throw them a bone, saying, "Look, I'm still defending America." Here's the thing: we designate. Okay, let's say it's designated. Are we going to have our FBI agents start chasing down and picking up Muslim Brotherhood operators in America? Let's see. Are we going to start with CARE? Are we going to have IRS investigate into CARE's finances? CARE being Council for American Islamic Relations? No, these designations are nothing. They're as useless as sanctions.
Does anyone have let's see if we can find anything. Any press releases on this? The White House released anything yet? Let's see. So far, I don't see anything.
I haven't found anything either. I know right now the big part of, again, America first, but the entire concentration is in peace deal of Ukraine and Russia. That's where the concentration, everything coming out of White House is about that.
Mm-hmm.
Which last I checked, neither Ukraine or Russia are part of America, but we need that peace deal somehow, right? We either need the peace deal or we need the war. I don't know. It depends on how Trump feels today.
Let's see. I think we may have found something. Let's see here. Let's see what we got here. The official designation. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you, Logan. The executive order designation of certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations. Certain.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'm sorry. This is hilariously embarrassing.
Okay, we know they've developed it back in 28. We got that. For example, the aftermath of October said blah, blah, blah. Okay, we got that. Implementation. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of State or Secretary of Treasury, after consultation with the Attorney General, Director of National Intelligence, shall submit a joint draft to the President through the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs concerning the designation. Within 45 days of submitting the report, okay, we got 30 days, we got 45 days.
That's 75 days already.
Okay. Within 45 days, as applicable, shall take all appropriate action consistent with the codes and executive order as applicable with regard to the designation of any Muslim Brotherhood chapters or other subdivisions described in Section 1. Okay. So which will it be? All of the chapters or just one or two they can pick off?
That's a funny thing. All
Would it be
these
all the
departments
states?
are gonna. Why would all these departments need to sit there and collaborate on making a list? Muslim Brotherhood and all its affiliates should be designated. That doesn't need 30 days of review. Just make a call to Bridget Gabriel, who translated the Muslim Brotherhood Manifesto, and ask her, how's that? I know she has done advising for President Trump before. Again, this is all a charade.
And you know that all of our Islamic nations that this government's working with have been told, look, we got to do some paper. We're going to throw some paper around and appease the MAGA crowd, the radicals, the Islamophobes. Don't worry. Nothing will come of it. Maybe we'll go after one or two chapters in a state here and there, but it won't be all Muslim Brotherhood, all chapters in all states. You watch. I will be so shocked. I will be shocked if that's actually what happens.
As you know, I'm going to keep a very close eye on this within the next 75 days. And I have a very strong feeling most of the chapters are going to be the dissolved chapters, where most Americans don't know they have dissolved. So they're going to think there's a long list. But then my Substack comes out showing people they were dissolved and they don't even exist under those names anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the news tonight. Anything else that you want to say before we let you go?
Yes, I would invite your audience, as always, to subscribe to my Substack. But if there was ever a reason, tomorrow I will be releasing a Substack that has probably been one of the hardest to work on. But Islamic Republic of Iran, that we are actively trying to get back on the table, they just released an app that is now officially a registered app for girls of age 13 to be registered on that app for a man to find a wife out of that list.
And that's where? In Iran?
Yes, in Iran. The app basically, how do I phrase this without breaking down here? I feel like they just gave men like my father a digital access to sell their kids faster for higher, better. So all Iranian girls of 13 now could be just listed on that app by their father, and the highest bidder will have them as their wife. And we are actively on our knees begging Iran to come to a negotiation table. I don't know how else to ask any administration to please stop enabling this monster.
When does Iran strike Israel, or do they?
If their plan behind Hezbollah fails, they will. But right now they're doing it through Hezbollah, especially after what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a major number of manpower and weapons going to Hezbollah.
Okay.
If Israel stops that, if somehow that fails, yes, Iran will attack Israel. And I would say, well, they're gonna need about a month for Hezbollah plan to go forward. If that fails, so within a month or two is when Iran, if that fails, Iran's going to have to attack.
And Hezbollah, where do you make of going into Venezuela? The talk is all about Venezuela being imminent. Going into there, we know that they're supposedly, Iran is helping train terrorists off that island near Venezuela, Margarita Island.
IRGC's been training jihadists in Venezuela since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a new thing.
No, it's not.
They train them and then they send them towards either Houthis or Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you make of what's supposed to be the imminent strike on Venezuela by our government, by our military?
I think that's another charade. I don't think Trump is going to actually attack. I really don't. A lot of moves he has made until today are going to fall apart with his Middle Eastern Islamic leaders. So I highly doubt he's going to it's going to be a talk. It's another, if Mamdani wins New York City, I'm going to cut all federal funding to New York City. Mm-hmm. If Mamdani wins, I'm going to send military to take over New York City. Oh, Mamdani won. Let's have dinner at White House. It's the same scenario.
Mm-mm-mm. All right,
I don't think he's going to do it.
Let's listen real quick to Ilhan Omar.
We are not
let's go to Ilhan Omar out of the Twin Cities, Channel 5, KSTP. This is what she has to say.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive.
Aren't they raping? Didn't I just report tonight on Worldview Report? The Somalis are raping the state of Minnesota financially and sending the money to a terrorist organization. Didn't I just report that tonight in the Worldview Report?
Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
Okay, she's responding to Donald Trump in his tweet about pulling the temporary, protection status on the Somalis up there. If they're so Minnesotan, why did they change the historic Minnesota flag to look like a Somali flag? If they're so interested in being Minnesotans. Why when you go on the street, the most Somalis say they want Sharia, Islamic law? They're not mainstreaming up there. They're not becoming Minnesotans and Americans. They're wanting to be a country in a country. True or false, Annie?
True in the front of what we understand in America, but you need to realize Sharia is superior to all other aspects of life for Muslims. You shall follow the law of the land unless it goes against Sharia. Your identity is Sharia. Your race is Islam. So when she's saying we're not going to let anyone make us feel less Minnesotan or American, that is not including the superiority of their Islam and Sharia. That always is superior to anything else, to your patriotism, to your race, gender, all of that. However, you also need to realize if she is so excited to be American, isn't she the same person who called America worse than Germany, Nazi Germany? Why would she want to be more American if America is Nazi Germany? But she does have a message. We're not going anywhere. That is the message we need to focus on. We're not going anywhere. Yeah, they're not going back to their country to take it back and fix it. They're here to destroy ours.
Well, that's what the Muslim Brotherhood explanatory memorandum that was found in a basement, written in the early 90s and found in a basement in 80 banker boxes in Northern Virginia said,
93.
We're going to get the Americans to destroy their own house with their own hand.
Yes, and we are doing it.
Yep.
We are doing it. If I could I made a post, and as we have some shared audience, I made a post announcing, aside my health issues, I'm taking this week off from air my show to finish the book. And I'm almost there. We're going to finish it. But the purpose of this book is exactly because I'm at a point where I think they won't even need, in 5 years, they're not going to need their jihadists anymore. We are going to complete the jihad for them. It has been so nicely blended into our culture that it's not even bothering anyone anymore. It's like we need some sort of a book to wake everybody up, or to remind them what they should mind, because we don't do that anymore.
Yep.
And that's why they're not going anywhere.
liveuptofreedom.substack.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com. Annie, as always, thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry, one more plug. Our Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale starts tomorrow on my artist studio. 25% off entire store. So if you missed our Christmas sale, this is your last chance for this year to grab what you need with 25% off.
Check it out, lutfstudio.com. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Brandon. Be safe.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Let's go. It's late. I'm tired. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. If you appreciate all we're doing here, again, thank you for your support so we can keep pushing it out free of charge. Worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. And our phone number, just text Melissa or leave her a voicemail. She'll call you back, help you make that contribution over the phone. Hey, thanks for watching. Till next time, I'm Brandon Howes. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brandon Howes.
Welcome. Glad you're with us. A Jew and a Gentile. Take a look at Romans chapter 11. This chapter is so important for both Jew and Gentile, really. But it's one that is often overlooked, not taught, but it's also one that is often twisted. I did a whole hour last night, and I didn't even get through finishing it. We'll have to come back after the Thanksgiving break for part 3. I'm in a series right now called Why I Am a Christian Zionist. A friend of mine called today who was pretty high ranking in the U.S. military. He's a conservative. He's a Christian. He said, can you please send me your series from last night and part 1 from a week ago on why you're a Christian Zionist? I said, sure, I can do that. Why? Well, I'm really interested in learning more about that from the perspective of the Bible. I know what a Zionist is, right? One who believes that Israel has a historical right to the land. But the idea of a Christian Zionist coming from the Bible, the understanding they have the historical right, but also the biblical right. I want to understand that more. This is a very controversial topic, but it shouldn't be. It's taught in the Bible. But it is often twisted, allegorized, spiritualized away, or the scripture is cut off and manipulated to give the desired presupposition to those who are into, well, things like replacement theology. Israel, they rejected Christ, and he passed them over and went right to the church, and he's therefore done with Israel. That's replacement theology. It comes from the father of replacement theology, Augustine or Augustine. Remember, John Calvin said he could write his entire theology based on that of Augustine. So many of the